you're ready to get started,
Sure.
we can start. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for logging on to this afternoon's program. My name is Matt Schumann. I am on the programming team here at Cary Library. Before we begin, just a few things to note. Please let me know in the chat if there are any technical issues that I can try to resolve. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to send them via the chat. Or if you want at the end, you can always unmute yourself as well. I'd like to now introduce Ashley Rooney, the past president of the Lexington Field and Garden Club. Ashley has been the host of our gardening series for the past almost 2 years now, you're saying,
Yes.
and has brought innumerable gardening experts to the library to answer all of our gardening questions and show off what special things are going around town. So now please welcome Ashley.
Hi there, everybody. It's nice on a snowy, would-be snowy day to get together, and especially with somebody like Christina Gamota, who has a long history of making things beautiful. Talk about one of your garden club experts. She is one of people I always took new members over to meet, to be at one of her craft classes to see what she could do. She's just been decorating the doors for the different historic houses right here in Lexington, along with Carla Fortman, who was one of our speakers 2 years ago, matter of fact. Once a straight modernist, Christina now believes life is too short to live amid just one period or style, and you will see many different periods in what she is doing today. Personally, I delight in going to her house and looking at the decor. She has a great eye for beauty, which she's going to share with us now, and how to make something stand out. When you have any questions with the lecture, just put them in the chat and we will take them at the end, so not to interrupt her flow. And now I'm going to turn the program over to Christina, our expert in making things beautiful.
Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome. Take it away, honey.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. On a cloudy day, I hope that this program will make you feel good and happy, and it will make you want to create your own topiaries. So what's going to happen today is that I will try to show you the different topiaries that I have created through the years. I also will share with you what is a topiary and the brief history of topiary. The rest of the program will consist of images of non-portable topiaries, portable topiaries that are in our landscape, and portable and mock topiaries that are in our home and are used through the years for different holidays. They all are very easy to create or make. They require just a few tools. With patience and steady hands, you will be able to create your own topiaries that you will fill your own environment. So let's see, what is a topiary? It is the art or practice of clipping trees, shrubs, perennials, and vines into ornamental, simple, geometric, or elaborate shapes. It is one of the oldest garden ornamental known to man. Topiary is the green garden sculpture. It goes back way to the Egyptian times. Their favorite versatile plant material was boxwood. The inspiration came to them by looking at plants that were grazed into bizarre shapes and browsing, which were created by browsing animals. The first image that I'm sharing with you is the landscape in front of our house. And those of you who have not been to the house, this is what you will see: a collection of 3 simple geometric shapes: the sphere, one of my favorite, the cone, and the natural shape that the arborvitae creates in the portable topiaries. And these are different angles taken of the front of our house. 3 different also boxwood have been used to create this. It's very easy. Now we will start with the fall, because that's where I start collecting my plant material. So you will be greeted in front by a pyramid that I created this year, placed on a pedestal that actually I inherited from the garden club. And it's 3 different sizes of pumpkins. So you can see that balances what we have on the left side, and it balances also on the right side when I'm talking about the non-portable topiary. So let's come inside and see what I have inside prepared for you. So here is my first image of 2 different plant material. The one in the center, that topiary, is a boxwood, wintergreen, which has spent a lot of time this year outdoors and was clipped probably 3 times to get to that shape. And the plant material on either side of it is cypress, which was the favorite plant material for the Romans, who followed the Egyptians in creating topiaries. So here you have another image, and the image is of the cypress, and in the center, the topiaries that you see are created by using herbs, and in this case is the myrtle. The myrtle topiary in the back is pretty tall. You see it on my back, and it's about 26 to 27 inches tall, and the one in front is also myrtle, but it's a short one. It's only 15 inches high. Here there is an introduction of my second herb topiary. It is in the form of a ring. It is on a form, which is a wire ring. The other 2 do not have any forms. And the rosemary did extremely well this summer. It had to be clipped also quite a few times to contain that shape and to make it continue to be bushy. So these are the portable green topiaries that I was referring at the beginning. Now, fall this year was pretty nice in the sense of temperature, and therefore I kept some of my myrtles outside. And here's an example of another myrtle. This is is between in height from the very tall and the shorter one. To create that feeling of fall, I found the most wonderful vine, which happens to be a bittersweet, which I'm using in front. And then to give you that feeling of fall and getting ready for the first holiday, I have introduced 3 little pumpkins.
That's lovely.
It happens that we have a birthday late in October, and it's our youngest son. And here are 2 types of topiaries. One that you have to train, and it takes a lot of time and patience. But the one on the right side is a topiary that's extremely easy to make. We have ornamental cabbages, which are full with leaves. And all what you have to do is just to remove the lower leaves and expose the stem, and voila, you have a wonderful topiary. To create a still life, if you're interested, just introduce some of plant material that relates to the fall. Apples, picking, we do quite often with our family, and again, a collection of pumpkins and branches. Here is a table setting for Alex's birthday. So here we have a cabbage topiary, which is a 2-tone. And we have, again, pumpkins. So these are slightly larger. And then if you look in the back, you have topiaries that I have clipped through the season. They're not boxwood. They are azaleas, Delaware azaleas, and they're just beautiful. So you have these round forms through the back, which actually I was inspired when I went to Japan, and so that everything had these amazing, simple, beautiful, elegant shapes. This is the side, one of the side of our back, and you have portable and non-portable topiaries. So now let's see what happens after this. We are getting ready for Thanksgiving, and here is my collection of items that I have gathered for Thanksgiving, and some of them will be used with the topiaries that I create. This image shows in our conservatory we have 4 defoliated myrtle topiaries. Once upon a time, and not too long ago, 2 years ago only, they were full of leaves and they were beautiful. And then overnight, they were infested. And I lost all 7 of them. I did not get rid of them because we had wonderful memories. And also, they are kind of neat. In the fall, we do lose leaves, correct? And so I use them, and I will show you how I use them. So here's one example of one of the myrtle defoliated topiaries. I wanted to create a sculpture, a bronze sculpture. So I decided to spray this with a color that would kind of mimic the bronze. Then I used an oversized pot, which also got sprayed the same color. Oak leaves, I bunched some small twigs, and then one of my favorite birds from my bird collection adds to that still life. This has been moved to another location in the house, and I thought of introducing other elements to create a still life for Thanksgiving. And so you have, again, you see the pumpkins and more oak leaves. Some are sprayed. There are acorns at the bottom that were sprayed. And again, that favorite bird that I love. This is a defoliated azalea topiary that I received one Mother's Day. What I loved about it was the trunk, as you can see, is braided. And so it has a lot of interest. In this case, I used a different pot. It is a pot that is lined with birch bark and then different pumpkins. You see, I introduced different pumpkins and different branches as well. You can change that look by introducing a textile that will complement this arrangement. And you can also introduce candles. And these candles are vintage. I bought them at one of the special sales that we have in at the East Village. I added a bird, and you have a completely different look with your defoliated topiary that once upon a time had beautiful pink flowers and lots of memories. My tools are simple. These are the tools, and not very expensive. These are the tools that I started with. And through the years, because of the surgery that I had on my wrist, I only use 3. The one that I no longer can use is the hedge shears in the back. And I cannot use the Falco, even though it's a good instrument to do the clipping. It just somehow does not agree with me. So what I use are 3 only. And the one that has the pink handles, the pruner shear, and the green handle, and then the general purpose scissors. No electric equipment I use for the clipping outside. Now let's move to the topiary that are portable and the mock topiary. And here is an image that shows just a few of them. The forms are used for these topiaries. Unlike the non-portable, I don't use forms. For these, I do use forms. These are styrofoam forms that probably I use the most. And the 2 shapes that I like, again, is the cone and a sphere. They come in different sizes and they're available in many different places, and they're not expensive. The tools, I use 2 different weights and sizes of glue gun, depending upon what is being attached to the sphere. Heavy ones, I use the glue gun that is in the center because the heat is more intense, and I need to have a more intense heat to glue a walnut versus a soft material like a hemlock cone. And the one to the right is a much smaller, and also the heat is not as high. There are different sticks that you use depending upon the opening of the hot glue gun. You have small round ones for the one that is on the right. You have larger round ones, and then there are also flat ones. I do not have an example for you for the glue gun that will have that opening. If you're not planning to attach your ingredients onto the styrofoam by using a glue gun, then you have other methods of doing. Floors wire on the right side and decorative wires on the left side. They come in different kind of finishes, gold, copper, silver, or the center, which is the monofilament, and it happens to be my dad's fishing line. The tools are simple again. They are general purpose scissors and wire cutters. Now we are in the holiday season, which is Christmas in our house. And you see a display of spheres, which are flat on an old silver tray. They are not inside a container. The one in the center, which is quite large and heavy, in order to keep it in place, it sits inside a wreath that is made up of dry plant material, different sizes of cones, pots, and so on. And the spheres on the left side are the same size, which is a medium size. And because I have 3 of them, they are firm and they do not need to sit except on a flat surface. This you can use year round, and I have used, it does not have to be just Christmas. You can use it in fall. You can even use it summertime by introducing other accessories. Here you have a smaller topiary that has a stem. So you have the head, which is a styrofoam cover in sphagnum moss, sitting on a dowel, which goes all the way to the inside of the pot. Then the pot is filled with gravel to keep it in place. And the dowel, for interest, is covered with small twigs, which are attached to the dowel with a wire. To cover the crushed stones, I have the moss. For good luck, I have a small bird nest with a bird. Yep. And the core of the sphere is the bottom of your acorn. So you see the acorn not only can use as a whole nut, but you also can use just the bottom, the cap. This is my oldest tree topiary. It's over 30 years old, and it has a medium-sized styrofoam form and tiny, truly tiny hemlock cones. The stem is birch. It sits in plaster of Paris, because that's how I learned to make my first topiaries. You had to use plaster of Paris. Today, I don't do that. Once in a while, I do it. And then it has a garland that is created by using 2 different nuts, a walnut and hazelnut, which have been shellacked. And of course, the inside, the plaster of Paris, is covered by using sphagnum moss. In the back, I have a curly willow branch, which is very significant to me. It was given to me as a tiny little plant when my friend's mother turned 90, and now it's a gigantic tree, and I use it because it creates those memories. Here are the spheres that you saw on a platter. Now they are on terracotta pots with a branch in the back. So you see how it has changed completely. It didn't have to do very much, just find different containers. This is a Christmas tree topiary where I did use plaster of Paris. The cone shape has a dowel that goes halfway, and then the other half goes into the plaster of Paris, and it has 3 layers of dry plant material. And why 3? Because since I use pine cones of different sizes. There were a lot of spaces that were open and I did not want to look at them. And so I kept filling them with different kind of drape plant material. This is an example of a workshop that I did for the garden club some years ago. And they were used actually and sold at a boutique that the garden club had. You can see the variety of wonderful designs that these members created. I hope this will inspire you too.
Yeah, they were lovely.
Here you see the tremendous difference that it makes what kind of container you choose. You saw the simple spheres that I have used in the previous images. Now the spheres are coming and they are placed on contemporary container, like the one on the far right, Victorian container in the center, and a contemporary container on the left. The sphere on the left is again styrofoam form, no glue gun, sphagnum moss, and gold wires that I have used to attach the sphagnum moss, 3 different sizes. Now, if you are like George and I, who collect a lot of art and bright colors, sometimes it's difficult to find the right accessory to complement during the holidays. So I went back to things that I like, and I thought Williamsburg style will complement that. Simple and elegant, and choose a color that will complement this beautiful African sculpture created by a French female artist. And it's a cone, a styrofoam cone with a dowel that is inserted into the gold goblet. The styrofoam form is covered in sphagnum moss because I knew there would be spaces in between and I did not want to introduce any other material. And then tiny, tiny little apples. She has a companion. So I had to create a second little tree, and they're pretty good size. This is a close-up of that topiary. In the living room, we have African art. And sometimes it's difficult to find an accessory, and an oil painting with a heavy gold frame. So I try to complement both of the pieces of art by choosing a simple gold container, a cone, styrofoam cone form, and a lot of wonderful texture to cover it, and just a sprinkle of acorns that I removed the cap and used just the nut, and they were sprayed gold, and then some gold wire that went around. Here is a close-up of that particular portable dry topiary for the holiday. Again, this can be used during the Thanksgiving holidays as well, and you can have some pumpkins that you can spray gold and other things. Another form for a portable topiary is the form that I bought in Williamsburg, which is made out of solid wood with nails. And I use this when I use fresh material, like this, ladies' apples.
Oh,
And because there are spaces in between, boxwood, I find it is the perfect material to use. It sits on a circle that was cut out of a cardboard side of a box, and then magnolia leaves are attached to give it that nice feeling. This can also sit, depending upon the size of your topiary, on an urn, and it looks quite beautiful. Another form that I use is the wire form. Penguins are important. I grew up in Argentina, so penguin has a meaning to me, which I have shared with my family. And see what happens to this penguin form. If you fill it with crushed paper, then you can cover with sphagnum moss Again, glue is not being used here. I use florist wire, and in this case, I use green florist wire. You can see the different angles. Again, this can be used all year round, not just Christmas. Here is a smaller form of a bird that I have used many times, unfilled, uncovered, and I combine it with other accessories. Here is a form that many of you use outside for climbing plant material, like different kinds of ivies. I decided that I was going to show you that you can use them in pots inside without no plant material growing on it. The moss, by the way, comes from my garden. I have a lot of acidity due to hemlocks, and so moss loves that and it grows freely. Christmas for us would not be without a teddy bear. So when I saw the wire forms of a teddy bear, I had to create this bear. And this bear is quite old. Mama bear probably is close to 35 years old. Mama bear gets different necklaces depending when she's used. Christmas time, this is how she looks. And another form, this is a smaller form, and I thought it would be wonderful to introduce the baby to Mama. And here is the baby. And I think this is a female because I created a little necklace by using air dry rosebuds with pearls in between. And what's nice about Mama bear is that her arms are such that she can hold something like her baby, or she can have a basket with miniature flowers during springtime, or a basket filled with eggs during Easter. So again, yes, we use it Christmas time, but you also can use her many other times. She has faded through the years, and I like that look. Christmas time, this year, she has this wonderful wreath made out of an herb called bedstraw, which we actually grow at Henker Clark Herb Garden. What else can you do with your spheres? Styrofoam sphere. Well, you can decoupage. Some of you remember how popular decoupage used to be. So you cut strips of newspaper. You can use foreign newspaper. You can use all kinds of newspapers, and you cover entirely with your favorite glue. In my case, was a glue that I learned to make by using flour, vinegar, et cetera, but now there are many other glues that you can use. You can cover the dowel, you can cover the entire container, inside, outside, and then I dress it up with my favorite nut, hazelnut. Now, how can you use them? Okay, you can create a fantasy setting. And I created this for a dessert event to celebrate the new year. And whom do we have at this party? We have interesting candles. We have Mr. Rabbit on the left, Mr. Frog on the right, and Mr. Ostrich in the center holding wonderful things on his head. And then we have some swan at the bottom. There also are candles inside and candlesticks with beautiful flowers around. If you don't like this and you're romantic, you can set up a dinner for two by using one sphere, Elsa Paredes bone sticks, and then you can look at your collection of black and white pattern plates, black napkins, a salt and pepper that we bought in Nice some years ago. And you have your setting that complements your decoupage, very plain, but yet elegant topiary. a holiday is coming. One of our favorites after Christmas is a Valentine's Day. And how do we celebrate? Well, you can create a topiary by needle pointing a heart with the right words on it and the right images, the lovebird and different hearts, the right colors. And you have an acrylic stem and acrylic base. This was made by me more than 50 years ago and used in many different ways. You don't need fresh flowers. You can create and fill a styrofoam sphere by air drying rose buds. And depending how you use the sphere, you create your topiary. This time, the sphere is sitting in an old container that has faded roses in front. And it has these wonderful gold details. And I try to bring some more interest by having some green sphagnum moss at the bottom. Memories, topiaries, which bring memories of events, of fun time. Again, by using different containers, it changes the look. You have a pottery container on the right, a Victorian container that used to have a candle in the center, and a Ukrainian lacquer wood container with many straw flowers, which were very popular in the 60s. Artichoke, yes, you can use an artichoke, air dry, especially like this one that resembles a large chrysanthemum. You can elongate the stem by using branches and attaching them by creating wire bands. And in this case, because of the length that I wanted, it becomes an accessory. And then you look for the right container. This container has crushed stones from the bottom all the way to the top. And of course, the symbol of love, a dove. I use this year round. Mother's Day. Mother's Day does not have to be all fresh flowers. You can create your flowers by using strips of paper or strips of fabric in a simple container. Normally, on Mother's Day, you will get fresh flowers, but you saw the effect of non-fresh flowers. And this is what I did get for Mother's Day. The branch in front was an accident that occurred during wintertime, and our Japanese maple tree landed on the ground, and I love it. Memories, a still life of memories. My first Mother's Day present for my mom in Austria, giving her a bouquet of forget-me-nots. These forget-me-nots are vintage. There were bunches that I bought at an antique store. I took them apart and filled my styrofoam form. They sit on a goblet that has tarnished, and I decided not to polish. And on the right side is a glass container, memories of buttons put together as flowers. And these buttons came from favorite garments of my mom and my dad. Here is a close-up of the forget-me-not. Here is a vignette that was created by using a styrofoam ball covered in old leaves, velvet leaves, and they are attached not by wire, not by glue, but by using straight pins with pearl heads. The dowel goes, or the stem goes all the way to the bottom. I use crushed paper, just like the crushed paper that I use for the inside of the metal forms. And then I build up my sphagnum moss and a favorite pin, sterling pin of a bee. So I call this my queen bee topiary, and it sits between two forms, a couple, an art that I love that is created by someone that I know, and many of you know her, Molly. And I thought it would be nice to place this topiary between the conversation that is going between the couple. Okay, that's a close-up look of that topiary. Now let's see what else we have. Here, the topiary, I wanted to mimic the knot of the pearl necklace that I created, and the other ones are also mine design. And I thought I had a reed form that I thought if I sprayed it white and then place some pearls on wires, look for a stem, look for a container. This container is rather interesting. It has triangles all around, and use a deer moss. We'll be able to mimic that. And here you have a close-up and you can see the container. The container here is also very important. And then trying to find the right texture. The deer moss is important too versus the other mosses. Memories, more memories. Why just have a bouquet that dies on you? Or if it dies, keep that memory by using the petals and filling a glass sphere. Look for the right container. This is highly textured because I felt that the smooth texture of the glass requires something else, a contrast, a heavily textured. Again, that container used to have a candle. And my favorite bird. This is another sphere and is filled with the peony petals that came from my garden, air dried. It mimics a bouquet and is inside a Victorian glass container, which is a goblet, wine goblet. This is the smallest container. So the ones that I have showed you, the mock topiaries, they range from 15 inches to 12. And the height is achieved by the size of the container that you have. So this has silk flowers, which are dogwood, all fashioned. Again, I bought them in a bunch. They probably were used an accessory for a hat. And a very simple terracotta topiary filled with river stones, no plaster of Paris or crushed paper. Another vignette here, I call this Wishing Bone Topiary. The topiary has been created by using a small styrofoam ball, and I was not able to find silk leaves, so I thought, oh, why not felt? Felt is easily available, it's inexpensive. So I created my own pattern and I cut many, it requires lots of leaves. And then I use the straight pen. These are shorter. You have to be careful when you use straight pens, not to use very long ones because there's only so much that the styrofoam form can hold. And then I found a branch that had an opening. And I decided instead of attaching and gluing the sphere, I would just place it inside. I collect wishbones and I gild them or paint them in different colors. I had a Cornish hen and chicken wishing bones, which I gilded, and I placed them on top. At the bottom, the top has the smallest one, the bottom, and then I carry that wishing bone to the next platform. And the moss that I use is Spanish moss, so it has a very different texture, and it blends very nicely with the container, which is ceramic. And then the figures, the dancing figures, are Japanese. I had them for a long time. Here is a close-up, so you can see the felt leaves better. Spanish moth and the wishing bone. Here is a still life created by using different portable topiaries for different holidays. And again, the ones that are just spheres that are not attached you can, by placing them in different containers, you can create completely different moods. And I try always to do is to create an accessory that fits with the environment that they're placed in. Here is a close-up of the Frosty mini pinecone topiaries. These pine cones have been sliced in half and attached to not a very straight branch, which I like. And again, you have the texture of the crushed stones. These are the crushed stones that I buy in big bags for the time when I start forcing bulbs, especially like narcissus bulbs. They come very handy and they're very inexpensive. And the container also used to contain a candle. Here is a repeat of the collection of the mini portable topiaries that you have seen for different occasions. And here is a still life created by using the Mother's Day topiaries. Containers. My collection of other containers, someone can say, well, the ones that you had were fancy. Well, here are the containers that you use to pot things, containers that came with flowers in it for different occasions. I store them. These containers are stored in my shed. So this is one side, this is the other side. You can buy these in many different places, including Goodwill, Boomerang, fairs, and so on. I am very careful with my budget, so I can create these things because they can be expensive. So I try to be always resourceful. Now, there are lots of books on topiaries. Here is a list of them. I will share this list with the library. So if you are interested, you will be able to find them. I think I have like 18 that were suggested. Many of them I have. And one of the last images are the non-portable. In this case, this was an image taken 5 years ago when I had these amazing, beautiful boxwood. And then the blight came and one by one, they had to be removed because I no longer was able to clip them into spheres. They have been replaced, and you have seen that image at the beginning that I show of portable and non-portable. In this case, everything is non-portable. They are in the ground. And the last image that you will see is the image or images that I have created, a collage of the different sites in our backyard. And they will be topiaries created by clipping 5 different boxes, which we have, and azaleas. The image at the bottom on the left side, what you see, those spheres, half of spheres, are not topiaries. They are azaleas, Delaware azaleas. The image in the center on the left side is those topiaries are created by boxwood, and they are inside my perennial garden. So topiaries are used at borders. Topiaries are used in our garden, in perennial gardens, and everywhere where I find space. With that completes my program on images. I hope that you have enjoyed and you were inspired. And if you have any questions, I will be more than happy. I don't know how I did with time, Ashley, whether I adhere to the time.
You did just fine, and you were beautiful as always. I was remembering when I first met Christina, I was new in the garden club, and I just was writing a second book on table decor. And Christina would call me up and say, I have a new table for you. And I would say, Christina, it's Saturday night, we're going out. She said, come back at 10 when you're through and come take pictures. And she would have this gorgeous table. And we'd be there until 11 taking pictures and then find another thing. She can do beautiful things that you just saw. Now we do have some questions. And several of you have asked the similar question. Where do they all go? They're in the chat. Here we are. Oh, I've lost the questions,
I
Matt.
can ask them if you want. They're
Oh,
just
are
in the
you?
chat if you scroll up, but
I'll just scroll up. I just see participants now.
I can
One of
just
the
ask.
ones is people asked, can you redo the presentation? The library does it as a YouTube. And Matt will share that with you when he sends his thank yous to you along with the book list. And you can see how to get on the YouTube, which is available to everybody across the world. These presentations are being watched and time again. And Christina's is certainly meant to be shared with you and your friends. And so you can see how to do it. Several other people asked, and I wondered, Christina, the miniature fruit, take the miniature apples, were they live?
No,
Real
they were
apples?
dry. They
They
were
were-
dry. They are pretenders. But you can, the size that I'm using, it's a little bit more than 1.5 inches. And so even if I look at the lady's apple, which you have seen, they would have been too big for that size of a cone to use fresh. So for the size of the cone that I use, in order to achieve that look, you need to have the miniature. And the miniature will be probably a crab apple, but a crab apple, will not last. So I could do a topiary like that by using a live crab apple early in the season when they come, because they don't dry well, they will be all wrinkle and they will not preserve well. So that's why I turn to a pretender, which, it is accepted in the Williamsburg style. And unfortunately, I have to tell you, I started a third size and it's 3/4 complete because they no longer sell that size. So any one of you who has some leftover miniature apples, I would love to negotiate because I actually should have had that image for you to see. So they're not real, they're pretenders, they're dry.
I was wondering where you got them from, and how you found those.
Wilson's provided me the majority, and then they no longer were, even when they share their own, they stop. They're not
Okay.
longer.
And with the live fruit, you had a beautiful, gorgeous live topiary with full fruit.
Yeah, that's lady's apple. Lady's apple, which you can get again at Wilson's. And I think, to me, they have probably the best selection in town. And boxwood, which come from my garden, and they usually, you don't need more than 2 inches. So you fill those spaces. And then the magnolia leaves, when I created that, it was difficult with magnolia leaves. Not everybody had. You had to buy them from Virginia, and they will come in the mail. Today, everybody has magnolia leaves. And again, you can use pretenders. I was at Russell's the other day, and they were selling the pretenders. They look pretty good. I mean, all what you will see from the magnolia leaf will be just the end, because the cone will be sitting. And try to use an urn. I mean, it completely changes the look. When you place this into an urn. If you place it in an urn, then I would suggest to put a dowel, a strong one, because it is heavy. And if you don't have, that can be also, besides the wooden form, that can be used by creating a form by using chicken wire. Okay, so that's another thing. But if you use the wooden form, I have to retrieve what I said, then I will use a heavier circle versus the cardboard circle, because you really want a steady base.
Right. And I would recommend, if you're using real fruit, to have a sturdy base so it won't suddenly rot on you. My father kept the pumpkin arrangement I gave him too long and ended up screwing up his mahogany table.
Right.
Yeah, you can really mess up.
Right.
Now, Matt, I'm going to need you because that chat list disappeared on me. It was
Yeah,
a
that's
question.
fine. So one of the questions that's relevant was what happens when the fruit rots? Do you spray it with something?
No, no. When
No.
the fruit, you check the fruit because not only that it rots, but it attracts insects. And if you have plants inside your house, you saw what happened to my myrtle topiaries.
Yeah.
You don't want any insect in the house. So you need to understand that when you use fresh fruit, it's temporary. So it's a much bigger investment than when you use dry plant material inside. You just get rid of it. It's like the pumpkins that you saw. I thought, oh, maybe I will spray them. Well, no, I couldn't, because once they start to rot, they have to go out. You just get rid of it. You don't
Right.
want any molds. Then there are allergies in our home. There are allergies, chronic asthma. You don't want have something that's decomposing.
No. Besides,
You can spray, and I learned this from Mary Washburn, one of our
no.
special friends in the garden club, when she created something by using dry plant material, which I did not show you topiaries where you can use dry flowers and creating spheres with dry. You can spray with an inexpensive hair spray. And that will make it easier for you to do the dusting, because it's almost like shellacs,
Yeah.
the plant material. Correct.
So you just use basic hairspray.
Correct.
on
To
the-
spray your dry flowers if you
Right.
want to keep them for a long time. And then it will be easier to use your feather duster
Right.
and the dust. Correct. But don't use that on other things. I mean, I have used color sprays to bring the gold and the silver on leaves, as you saw on oak leaves, and defoliated. And that is just creates a look, and it's nice because it's temporary. You can respray. As a matter of fact, I have some curly willow, beautiful branches that came down, and I'm going to spray them gold, and then I'm going to put the second layer in silver, so it will have these specks, and it will be kind of shiny at night.
Yeah, that'll be lovely.
Spray the fresh. That's my recommendation because of the issues that I have had. Don't bring bugs in.
Right. Well, I noticed at one place you mentioned shellac on your hemlock pinecone topiary. And I was wondering if you use shellac often.
I use the shellac, and I use that often on the topiaries, where I introduce a garland made out of nuts. First of all, if you use, and I did not mention this, if you use any kind of dry plant material, I will make sure that it's completely clean. And pine cones and nuts, I have all trays that I line in Reynolds wrap, aluminum foil. Okay.
Right.
And then I place them in a single layer, and I put them in an oven that was preheated before at a low temperature. And then I drop that to really low, and I place those trays in the oven, and they stay in the oven for probably 2 nights to make sure that if there were insects inside, they will not come outside, that they will be dead. And so when I attach these pieces to a styrofoam or wire form, I will not have a nest of insects.
Yeah.
Because you can have that. People have had that. You can start having these little worms coming out, and you are shocked, where they're coming from. Well,
that would be awful.
I don't use chemicals. You see, chemicals in our home are not popular. That's why potpourri is popular, because it's always the scent and how George reacts to them. So I have learned that low temperature in the oven is ideal. It doesn't do anything for anybody, but it does help you by removing whatever is inside if you haven't seen it. So
And what about-
examine your plant material, dry and nuts for any little holes, because if you see a tiny little hole, you know that that could be an indication there's someone living inside or something.
What about the grasses or the pine cones? Do you do the same thing with them?
I don't do anything with the grasses. I have been, I guess, fortunate that they have not produced anything. But with all the pine cones, I do that, yes.
Makes sense.
The other way, good thing is also you putting them outside, and the first frost will kill, if the temperature drastically drops and you have large pine cones and too many, just leave them outside, that kills. We have pillows now that are outside because we have an infestation of moth, and a disaster has been created. And I find that the cold weather kills all of that. The larvae dies and the insect dies. Yeah, it does.
Well, so one has to do it, especially if you're making something beautiful. You don't want to have little worms crawling out of the middle of it.
Correct.
Are there any other questions?
There were a couple that was, what were the flowers from Mother's Day made of? And do you make your own frames? And how long have you been creating topiaries? I think those were the last three questions.
Okay, which Mother's Day topiary?
I think there was the white flowers. You had like a box.
Oh, there are white crepe paper.
Yeah. Yes.
It's, crepe stretches. And so if you cut a long strip, and then you start rolling and rolling and rolling, then you pinch the bottom, you put your wire in, which you attach to a stem, so that helps you to have a stem. But you can also use a certain texture of fabric that will create the same effect.
Oh, I remember when we learned how to do that. Corinne taught us how to do that.
Exactly. Corinne created a Christmas tree, a beautiful Christmas tree. And Corinne, I don't know whether she has joined us or not. I have to.
Here, she's here.
Corinne created, and I was a recipient, so I still have it. She created a small bouquet of flowers that she used leaves, maple leaves, and she created these beautiful blossoms and bunched them up to create a bouquet. And I tried that, yeah. So you see, the fun of creating a topiary is that it fits any budget. From a small to a medium to a very high, because your topiaries could be covered with diamond bees, pins, to something that you picked up, that Mother Nature created, something that is around you. Just like when I did the program Topiary, there is so much around us. Branches, I find that branches are so important. Look at your branches around you. They have lichens, they have beautiful forms, and they're such an addition. And again, if you're someone sentimental like me, and you like to bring those wonderful memories of once upon a time, they do, and you can bring those things from other countries as you travel. So there are a lot of things that you can do. You don't have to go and immediately buy. What you need to buy is perhaps the glue sticks if you're using the glue stick, or the tool. But again, you saw my tools. They're very simple. And many members of the garden club are convincing me buy some electric tools so you will save your arm and you will save your wrist. I find that I have better control with a manual tool that fits the size of my hand and does not apply pressure. So from 6, I eliminated to 3. I can no longer use the tool for the hedges, and I have many hedges. George doesn't do that. I do that. And it's hard because my shoulder is affected too, but I can do it manually. You see, if you are on top of your clipping and I have a system, then you never will have to deal with thick stems or stems that are too curly and become an issue of clipping. So everything is doable. And at any age, I'm 80 years old and I'm proud of being 80. So I don't want to hear, well, I'm 50 something or I'm 60 something or 70 something. Age has nothing to do.
Now, which reminds me, Christina, somebody asked, how long have you done this? Have you done this since you were 20 or?
I started doing this when we lived in Western Virginia. Inspiration, and I did not realize until I started looking. And so I was in my 30s.
Okay.
In my 30s, and the first topiary would be that needlepoint that you saw. That kid came from MoMA because we were living in Summit, New Jersey. And I was what, 33, correct? I was 33 years old when I did that.
So almost 50 years you have been doing this, and look at the heirlooms you have created.
And I have 3 sons and 4 grandsons, no girls.
But you say your sons love all the tradition around the holidays.
They do.
And so, which is wonderful. So look at what they have to share, and to come to your house must be perfect.
Right.
And I thank you all for being with us today. This was a lovely pre-holiday presentation for all of us to think about what we want to do. And stay healthy, everybody. Keep warm, stay out of the snow, and good night all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.